Okay, this is our November Infinite Wisdom interview, and I could not be more thrilled than to be talking here with Shelley Ostroff, who is, when I had to think about who could best speak to unity consciousness, there was only really one person who stood at the very top of the list, and that's Shelley. And that's because unity consciousness is a very big concept, and none of us, I don't think, have done the depth of thinking about it as Shelley has. And unity consciousness is obviously one thing for humanity, but it's another thing when we're talking about the really bigger pictures and how to be in a unified field with those. So we're gonna start from the beginning, and we're just, because even though I've interviewed Shelley before, we've talked about some other things, and today I want everybody to be able to hear about Shelley's journey a little bit from the beginning, so that you understand where she comes from, where this information originated, and its place that we have in common. So, Shelley, welcome, welcome. It's so good to be with you.
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you. Thank you for that beautiful introduction.
Well, I could go on. I could go on and on, but I'll keep it short. So let us just dive in here to, your wonderful story about when things started to talk to you and how all that happened. Would you mind taking us back?
Gosh, I'm not quite sure how far back to go, but I think what you're mainly referring to is an extraordinary encounter I had with the white lions.
But how you even got to the white lions?
Yeah. Before that, and my whole life, from the age of about 17 onwards, I was very preoccupied with why is there so much suffering in the world, and why humanity is causing so much pain and suffering to themselves and to others, and finding myself on a journey of healing and of exploring the world of healing, from art therapy to psychology, group facilitation, intuitive healing, energetic healing, learning more and more over the years around this field of healing, and moving from a space of consciousness which was very caught within the more traditional ways of seeing the world, to understanding the world of energy through different experiences of self-healing, where I realized I could heal myself with focus, with energy, with my hands, and then playing with that and realizing that this was a field of work that many people were involved in. So the journey was from a very constricted place of consciousness, recognizing that feeling very small and incapable of doing very much in the world, to also following a path of learning about authority and leadership in the work that I did as an art therapist and as a director of a psychiatric vocational rehabilitation center. So the journey after that went through many different forms. I did a doctorate in my 40s, when I turned 40, on the issue of body, soul, and role, a holistic approach to healing and health and wellness in organizations. So very much steeped in the organizational world, I started to understand the field of interconnectedness of the psychic matrix that connects humanity, and recognizing that even as groups, we're not as autonomous as we think we are. There's a field of energy that connects us all, and that we impact and are impacted by, and that actually influences our behavior. And at some point, I also exposed myself and became very intrigued with shamanic work, with plant medicine, with different fields of accessing the other dimensions of consciousness. So the journey has been one from, as I said, a very constricted consciousness to one that is more and more in awe of the vastness of our living universe and the participatory nature of our living universe. and doing and engaging in this from a healing perspective, recognizing that a very important part of our current pain, suffering, trauma, conflict is steeped in the mindset of separateness and domination, privilege, which is rooted in the concept of patriarchy and colonization, which goes back to our mythologies, to our patriarchal mythologies. And this is something that everybody's becoming more aware of now. At the time when I started this journey, there were already many books and people talking about it. Today, everybody's speaking about unitive consciousness. And I'm intrigued by how many different voices and how many different perspectives there are on it. The part that you're talking about, where I was in 2012, in November 2012, I had an extraordinary vision of this white lion that came to me and said to me very clearly in the vision, "Come now." And I knew who that white lion was because I'd read the book, The Mystery of the White Lions by Linda Tucker. And it was the story of her learning about her role as guardian of the white lions and her incredible journey of a journey of great courage and mystery and synchronicity and guidance to be able to create an extraordinary sanctuary, a wild sanctuary for these beings of majesty that are appearing on the planet at the moment to guide our way forward. So this is where our stories, your and my story, interact in the meeting with the white lions. And this consciousness of the white lions is so profound that I had to go there. Immediately I had the vision. I knew that this was a calling, and I had no idea if it was possible at all. But somehow within the space of a month, I was able to go and visit the white lions, visit this place where they live in a protected space, but very wild as nature intended. And when I was there, I understood that my life was changing in the moment, because I knew there was something I had to do. I didn't know what it was, but it was clear that I was receiving a message of a new path forward. And that new path became revealed to me over the next 20 years, 11 years till where we are today. And it took me from this very focused place on the understanding of human connectedness to understanding planetary interconnectedness, and also our role as planetary stewards. And just being in the presence of the white lions and then continuing to get their guidance afterwards, I understood that I was to take all that I had learned and studied and discovered and led up until then, as in this holistic approach to human well-being and community well-being and organizational well-being, to understanding how to contribute this to planetary well-being. And with the guidance of the white lions, with this ongoing deep reverie and reverence and engagement, communion with them in different ways. And I was guided to expose myself to a lot of information that I would not have been exposed to otherwise, and began to create something that I call eco-governance today, aside from a couple of other planetary initiatives. And when we talk about unitive consciousness, I would say that the white lions hold in their frequency and in their presence a deep connectedness to the interconnectedness of all, and an understanding of right relationship. And through their presence, they inform in holographic communication what it means to live in that right relationship. And not in a simple, direct way. It actually sends you on this journey, which can sometimes be quite challenging, to learn what it is about where you're not living in right relationship, where you're not living in that, to learn the lessons and then be able to share them forward. And as years have passed, I've met so many people who have had similar encounters with the white lions that have been very powerful moments of transformation in their life, where they've also taken on larger stewardship roles than they had before, in this following of consciousness that they are feeling from them, that is holding this also connection, not only between right relationships on the planet, but also a direct connection to to the universal cosmic connections of where everything lives in harmony, in this extraordinary living participatory universe where everything is held in this one field of consciousness.
Wow. Well said. Oh, fantastic. And I should have introduced you as Dr. Shelley Ostroff. I'm sorry I didn't. But the lions, and as you were talking, I was thinking, you got me going into my imagination to picture this holographic, as you said, image of the whole thing being held. And it's like when you get up into that holograph or close to that holograph, your field gets it. It's a communication of an understanding and knowing down to your bones of what that can look like, feel like, be like. And it's not something, as you said, communicated by word. It's almost like an anointing or diving into the pool of, or I don't even know how to describe it. Language is very minimal for this, but you get a sense, you get a felt sense of the rightness of relationship. And the days we would go out, as you did, early in the morning, 4:30 or so, dark out, and you'd get on these open air Jeep type of vehicles and be going through the bush very slowly, because there are a lot of dips and it's not on a road. You're kind of just winding your way in search of the lions, because they've got collars on and there's an antenna to try and find them. Sometimes they don't want to be found. But if you are fortunate enough to find them, that's one thing. But it is actually in the process of looking for them, in the state of beingness that you're in, just being there in their kingdom. Whether you see them or not, you're in this perfection, this balanced perfection, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I felt a very strong experience of everything in right relationship as I walked through the gates. As we drove through the gates, there was something very different in this field than I'd experienced anywhere else. And I often tell the story of how on the gates itself, there's a sign that says right of way to the dung beetle. And that really struck me, because that for me felt right. And where else in the world do we think about right of way to nature, to the dung beetle, and not to the Jeep? And that was the way it's held there, where nature leads. So that frequency that you're talking about, which is a field of aliveness, of vitality, of nature being as it is, without interference, and humanity in service of that and aligned with that, it's a qualitatively different experience than what we experience anywhere else, where humanity has dominated, where humanity does consider itself and leads, and takes the liberty of thinking that nature is there for us.
That's really the key right there, because humans, we're vulnerable in that. I mean, in a sense, we're not at the top of the food chain in that place. We're not. The lions are at the top of the food chain, That's how I felt, at least. Like, not that I felt frightened at all, but you feel your place, and it's not at the top.
No, it's not at the top. In fact, it's actually not a hierarchical setup at all of top and bottom. It's a wholeness where everything has its place, and the lions, whose majesty, the white lions particularly, whose majesty I feel is the epitome of leadership on the planet, in their very presence, ensures that everything is in harmony and diversity, which I would say is a very concise way of talking about unity consciousness. It's unity consciousness, as far as when I think about it, and it's not terms that I usually use, but I work a lot with the concept of interconnectedness, and the unity consciousness is about the unity in diversity. Otherwise, unity doesn't have real meaning. And nature's
Yes.
language is about diversity. And it's the diversity, the integrity, and the harmony in the unity.
There you go.
It's about that wholeness, that where the whole and all the parts are in integrity, functioning as a healthy relationship one with the other, and as where the compass, and this is really the compass of eco-governance, is the health and vitality of the whole. And the lions hold that, and that's why I sense their majesty, and they're coming now to show the way forward, is about re-establishing that original code of creation, where we follow not the lions themselves, but the way in which the lions hold the health of the whole as our collective purpose.
Really good differentiation there. When I'm speaking about the food chain, that's hierarchical, that's linear. We're not talking about linear. We're talking about more of a sphere where it's right. It's three-dimensional, and even that distinction alone will blow people's minds, because we're so programmed to think hierarchically.
We are, and there is something about the top of the food chain that I would say is relevant in a way, because when I feel into the white lions and I feel into their communication, one of the impressions that I got very strongly was how, given their role in the food chain as apex predators, they have actually internalized all aspects of the whole within themselves, so that they are able to resonate with that, and in their beautiful, exquisite elegance, they've managed to create this gold white frequency where all is contained within that. So there is a relevance in that, of how they've integrated all aspects, and in nature how all of the way in which the food chain works, it gives itself to those higher levels, and where the apex predators thrive, that's where you get the most diverse ecosystems.
Yes, yes. And years ago, I went to a conference, and they were talking about the oceans and restoring reefs. And they found that when there was a dying reef, if they were able to reintroduce sharks, the whole reef came back to life. It's that same thing, the apex predator comes back and everything falls into place. Like there's a rightness that is known that we don't necessarily know, but it's in nature. And when it's there, everything thrives,
And this is such a fundamental misconception that we have about nature, because we project onto nature the kind of violence, abuse that we express. And when there's violence, we say, oh, well, that's our animal nature. But actually, animals are never randomly violent. They never. And it's a completely different organizational principle. And everything is about reciprocity. So we project a lot onto nature. When we see the kill of an animal species, we project onto it ruthless killing. But it's not that at all. And in fact, in many ways, Linda and would speak about, how there is this innate contract between and I've seen it in my visions of how there is this innate contract of the predator and the animal that it is going to kill, that where I almost sense it as an evolutionary karmic understanding.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That
that
makes a
may be,
lot of
that
sense to me.
too may be a projection, but I don't see it as, in the same way that we use our power to violate and to take. Nature never takes more than it needs.
Right. Well, it
And
brings
it
to mind
doesn't abuse,
sorry, go ahead.
it doesn't abuse in the way that we abuse and violate.
Right. It brings to mind the more, at least, stories here about Native American, pulling back the bow and the honoring of the deer, and the deer looking right at the hunter saying, I'm giving myself to you. It's that kind of understanding. I mean, that's maybe not the best example, but there's something very holy in that. There's just an exchange, right?
Sacred exchange when it's truly done with reverence and with an understanding of
Yes.
that innate agreement.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the gratitude is coming from the hunter, and the deer seems to understand that, and it's absolutely beautiful.
And a different way of experiencing than how we relate to our food chain now. When we look at, I think the food chain is such an important concept when we're talking about unity conscious, paradoxically, because we are what we eat. And our food system is so disconnected from the principles of nature that what we actually get in the supermarkets in bottles and plastic has no resemblance whatsoever to the way in which nature works through the whole food cycle to ensure that all are nourished with that which is most vitalizing for them. And so, when we learn about water, and when we learn about food and how and air and fire and climate and biodiversity and the web of life, all of the different 7 foundations of life that I work with, this is such a powerful portal into understanding the way in which everything is interconnected, and how nature works through each of these foundations of life to ensure that all parts of the whole receive what they need to be able to become all that they are.
I love what you're saying. And I'm curious about the portal, because, I think people are curious to figure out, well, how do I get into this? And I think of it as a stream, not, a stream of thinking, a stream of being. How do I get into this stream? What are some doorways that I could go through to keep this, and again, and I also want to keep exploring the diversity, the unity in the diversity, the diversity in the unity, because that's a trick, isn't it? And for humans to get there, that's a little bit of a trick. But let's talk about some portals that people could choose from to try to get into this consciousness, this unity consciousness you're talking about.
In many ways, everything is a portal. Because once you become curious about what is this that everybody's talking about, what is unity consciousness, and what I've learned is that unity consciousness is not about uniformity, it's not about homogeneity, it's not one big soup that all looks the same, and we're all in this together, and there's no differentiation. That's a polarity. It's unity in diversity, where those are held together. It's being able to transcend the paradox of being one and different simultaneously, being interconnected and separate simultaneously. So how do you hold that? Because we tend to say, oh, well, we're all one. And then that unique part of ourselves feels oppressed. Or we're all different, and then the unified field is denied. But it's both and they both coexist like the particle and the wave.
Mm-hmm.
And so anything becomes it, because if you look, and in the work that I tend to do at the moment, it's really looking at the world through our essential needs in a way, whether it's food, water, soil, air, shelter, the diverse emotional and physical safety, or the conditions we need in order to flourish. We realize that in order to get our basic needs met, we are completely interdependent on everything that is. There is nothing that is separate. And it's surprising because we're so used to living in our little families or our little groups, disconnected, going to the store and getting everything as isolated. But when you take any, as Thich Nhat Hanh is a wonderful master in this, take anything and just show how everything is connected to everything else. And if we start with that illusion of our separateness, or that we can do anything at the expense of anything else, or that we have to do anything at the expense of anything else because the only way to survive is competition, we're in that old paradigm which has been, and we have to extricate ourselves from it. So how do we do this? We start to expose ourselves to the incredible world that is happening in parallel to the normative world. The normative world at this point is crashing. We're seeing its dysfunction, we're seeing its lies, we're seeing that everything we've been taught is basically false. Everything. Our histories are false, our mathematics, everything is false. Well, almost everything, because nothing is that, but you have to really sift. And that there's that false narrative comes from a particular mindset, which is our evolutionary edge at the moment, is moving from that patriarchal dominant mindset of separateness to one where we recognize that this is an interconnected living planet in an interconnected living universe, and universes. And it's very hard to then bring that down to the concreteness of our everyday reality without flying out into theory. And when you go through the basic needs, you do that because you start to say, well, water, where does water come from? What is water? We are water. Each and every one of us is more than 99% apparently on the molecular level water. Everyone knows we're about 70%. So basically we're all water. What is the quality of the water? How do we steward the quality of the water? Who's in control of the water? How did that happen? Why is water being exchanged on the stock exchange at the moment? Why are we drinking from bottled water? What is happening to the dams and the natural flow of water? And this is who we are as fractals of the whole. We start to see everything differently because we're so, from this patriarchal model, we fall into the sleep of dependency. Someone out there, some authority is going to take care of us and they know what they're doing. And so, yeah, they take care of the electricity and the water and the food and the this and the that. And someone knows what they're doing. The big daddy and the big mommy know what they're doing, mainly the big daddy. Well, we realize they actually don't have our best interests at heart. So we're at this very painful moment and powerful moment of maturation to say, actually, no, we've gotten to the stage where we can no longer rely on that patriarchal paradigm. And that means growing up. And that growing up means taking care of ourselves, taking care of each other, and most importantly, taking care of Mother Earth that takes care of us all. Because if we don't take care of Mother, then none of us have anything. But we all kind of look at and have been taught to look at how we survive and thrive from a very separate and competitive landscape. So this is the edge, but the trajectory at the moment, as people are feeling the pain and the devastation and the incredible threats on the doorstep, yeah, to our bodily sovereignty, to our capacity to be able to feed ourselves and our children, to be able to breathe fresh air, to be able to trust that the governments and the structures that we've set in motion will actually protect us. Well, we can't do that anymore. So no. here we are, and there's an incredible waking up around that I think is actually taking us back into unity consciousness. It's taking us back into the fact that we actually have to unite together as one humanity, and that unification process is to reclaim our authority and our responsibility as a healthy species on the planet, like all other species that actually enrich the planet and don't deplete it. So we're at this incredible edge of this awakening of consciousness, and many have led the way. Many amazing beings have led the way for centuries, and the indigenous people have been risking their lives to protect Mother Earth, and there's many other stewards who have been doing so. And over the last, I would say, decades, more and more people are waking up to the fact that our current system is fundamentally flawed and fundamentally anti-life. And we're realizing those who are looking not at mainstream media, but at alternative media, are recognizing just how much of this is actually fueled by conscious agendas of those who are working to control everything.
Yeah.
So the globalist agenda, which kind of paints a picture of one world order, is using a lot of the terminology of actually, yes, there is one planetary order, but it's not an order of humanity. There is an innate, integral, inherent order of the planet that we cannot lead, we can only follow, and we can only work to heal and align ourselves with. And that planetary order, those laws of nature that are in our bones, that are in our DNA, and that we have the capacity to remember, that's what we're working to, I think, reawaken now. And it's happening whether we like it or not. And it depends. So I'm just seeing more and more people going off the grid, doing what they can, taking responsibility, buying organic, even going to work on organic farms, just making sure that we restore the water cycle, the food cycle, the pristineness of the air, that we take out all of the contaminants and the technologies that are interfering with that very foundational consciousness of air on which we all depend. And yet the air that we're breathing today is not that original, pristine, informative, enlivening, vitalizing, loving consciousness and presence and substance that we all depend on, because we've, so we're at this threshold. And maybe that was a lot, but yeah.
Oh, that was great. That was absolutely great. So just in case there are people who are watching this who are not aware at all or vaguely aware of this agenda, and how maybe those people in charge don't have our highest good in mind, and it's more about control and all of that. Just in case there are people who are kind of in the shadows with all this, I just want to say that it can bring on, it's a cognitive dissonance that is happening, and that can bring on a bit of despair, discouragement, depression, blah, 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 blah. Because as we wake up and as we mature, to use your word, and I like it a lot, it means taking on more responsibility. It means that we need to have the courage to face things that we don't want to face necessarily, but it's only through facing them that we're going to get anywhere. So I want to encourage anybody who's in that process to use the infinity wave a lot, to wave yourself with love and compassion and soften your system. It's going to be okay. You will get through this, and you will be on a new path, and you'll be on a path that is taking you towards more life and a better world. And there are lots of us out there who are there. So we're come on over. We're happy to have you. Um, and I just want to mention that Shelley and her partner Jan were kind of given a task. I don't want to make it sound like it's whatever, but they were given a job to do, and that was to create something called the 7 days of rest, and they were told to do it for 7 years at the very beginning of every year. And I have been fortunate enough to be a part of it for the last 2 years, and we're coming up again on it, and it's going to be the last year, I think, right? It's the seventh year, isn't it?
Seventh year of the cycle, of that cycle. I don't know what's going to happen afterwards, but when after the first event that we did, we understood it was supposed to, I got a clear message it was supposed to be for 7 years, and we're coming up to the seventh.
And all of these, the previous years, all the programming, Shelley will explain it a little better, but I'll just say on this topic of growing up and moving into another way of experiencing. It's not just thinking, it's another way of experiencing life and consciousness and unified fields, and not just on the planet, but on the larger scale. That 7 days of rest program, which runs every day for those first 7 days, is a great way to venture into this. And I mean, I get so much out of doing the meditations every night on the theme of the day. I have learned so much because I don't know who's going to come in and talk. And then, I've been absolutely blessed to, be a conduit for air, water, fire, earth, diversity, and more. And man, I'm surprised every time, and I'm so honored when these energies, I don't even know what else to call them, come through and speak eloquently about who they are and what they're here to give and how they want to relate to us, and they're so generous, and they're not depressing. They're very uplifting and very, very positive. So anyway, you want to talk a little bit about 7 days of rest and all of that and what's coming up?
Thank you. So 7 years ago, 2017, I was given a vision that I was to organize a global event of 7 days for the healing and replenishment of Mother Earth and all her inhabitants. And I understood it was supposed to happen for the first 7 days of 2018. And yeah, it was quite a initiation, because I didn't know what would be called forth. I didn't know how to do it. But again, it was one of those very strong visions that I've been blessed to have. And when I get that kind of guidance, there's no choice but to follow. And at that point, I reached out to Jan to support on this, and he joined in as a partner. And since then, we've held these very sacred events at the beginning of each year. We take January the 1st to the 7th of each year as a time of creating a global field of consciousness, of intention, where we seed the new year with a field of healing and of deep listening and rest, because it's from that frequency of rest and listening and not engaging in business as usual, but rather consciously co-creating around the world a sacred space for holding the greatest vision and intention and action for the planet. And each year a different theme comes a few months beforehand. It comes through, and then themes come for each of the 7 days, and they've been quite extraordinary. We've had 7 days of rest and radiant diversity, 7 days of rest and sacred renewal, 7 days of rest and yeah, gosh, here we go. I'll take you to the page, because I think that's a good way of just helping to see it. So the previous years, each year, there's a different theme. So in 2022, it was 7 days of rest and sacred renewal, 7 days of rest and radical healing in 2021, 7 days of rest and radiant diversity in 2020, and so forth. And at the beginning of this year, it was 7 days of rest and return to essence. And as you can see, each day, you can access the entire event for free through the website, 7days-of-rest.org. And you go into each day, and each day, for instance, the theme of the first day was presence. And there's invitations, there's many, many different offerings from people like Hope. There was a message, actually, always Linda Tucker from the White Lions has opened the event with a beautiful blessing from the Heartlands, and many different sacred ceremonies from around the world. Just many, many, many different offerings from the community. So people are invited to participate both by offering events or by just going in at your own time, at your own pace, to enjoy and to share in the experience, to participate by holding the frequency. This isn't about Zoom links and everybody participating together in an event that has particular sequence. There are certain events that you're invited to join at a particular time, but if you don't manage to do it, then the event will generally be recorded and available in your own time. So it's on the one hand, it's very together because you're in this field of consciousness, but it's also a very personal journey through those days, and you have the opportunity to make it what you want at your own pace, just making it feel really nourishing for you with incredible generosity of the community. And Hope's offerings have been extraordinary, just each day connecting with the themes of the day. And then Merlin and many of the guests that come through will speak so eloquently and so insightfully and inspiringly about each of these themes, bringing timeless wisdom. And it's been so nourishing for the event, and this is the kind of quality of invitation that we're invited to. And the sense is that there's so many beings, not only from this dimension, but from other dimensions, that are participating in these 7 days. And this time, the upcoming theme for the upcoming event is called 7 Days of Rest and Reweaving Wholeness. And so it's so linked to what we're talking about the unit, the consciousness of wholeness, and taking up our roles, our conscious roles, as reweaving the wholeness that is already there. But as we consciously connect these nodes of light, these threads of light that we are, and among us, between us, and with all of creation, we're actively enlivening the field and reawakening in the collective that remembering of the wholeness that we are, and that is in our original blueprint.
I'm going to share an image that I used in my newsletter the other day on this topic of reweaving. I just found this image and I loved it so much. And there it is. It seemed to speak to, let's see, make it a little bigger. There we go. I love that so much. I mean, that's one level of it, but it just, in terms of the weaving, it seemed to be right on track.
Absolutely, really encapsulating that.
Yeah.
And it's an opportunity to consciously participate in that weave.
Yes.
Knowing that we're coming, all of us, from that, somehow or other, from our own experiences of separateness, of fragmentation, of leaving parts of ourselves behind and parts of the other, and feeling otherness. And really, as we attend to these connections, we're consciously mending, in a way.
Yeah. The
fractured perception. The wholeness is there, but it's our fractured perception, which has also impacted the physical world as well, and the emotional world, of course.
Oh, that's interesting, because it's not weaving, it's reweaving, as if it is already there, and there are pieces not necessarily in the wholeness of creation, but in our way of being with it, we've gotten holes. We need to reweave ourselves into the whole, right?
Yeah, it's about reweaving the consciousness of wholeness within ourselves, and as we do that, we impact the field.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because that's also what my newsletter was about, my blog, whatever. And that is this idea that this came to me, I don't know, years back, early days of the wave, and so much was coming in all the time with the law, but it really struck me that unity consciousness, as we think of it, and as we've talked about it, and maybe a little more rudimentary back then in my mind, but I realized, well, you can't get there until you have unity within yourself, and because the general, most of us have fractionated parts, and they're not fully integrated into our whole, to who we are as almost parents to ourselves, right? Because who got the perfect parenting? Nobody. So along the line, we learn how to reparent ourselves, love ourselves in a way, accept our bruises and our warts and all of that, and reintegrate these fractionated parts of ourselves. And really, until we have done that, I don't think we can go to the next step, to the bigger step. We can go in parts, in pieces, but that's not what's required, really. So it takes some personal work first and foremost, I think, and before we get to the next stage. And it's interesting because even like participating in 7 days, as a listener, as a whatever, I'm not speaking as a person who's participating as a channeler or whatever. I'm just saying, for everybody, participating in the 7 days, you get to work on these multiple levels at the same time. You're working on your own reweaving while you're also working on the larger whole. Does that sound right to you? Or in the vicinity of okay?
Absolutely. I think one of the ways of looking at it is also, when we say you can't do this until you've done that, we're again creating a little bit of an otherness.
Yep.
And kind of a first then. And in that weave, as you say, we're doing it together. It's simultaneous. I think what you're warning against is like this feeling of trying to fix the other when we don't recognize that. And that's problematic, because we kind of see in order, from a place of judgment of that which is not whole, we kind of project it outside and try to fix that, and then we're basically reinforcing that fracture. And so it's also such a journey, because there's infinite parts to reweave. I mean,
Yes,
I don't
yes.
know to complete the journey, but it's as we embark on the journey without trying to get anywhere, but it's the frequency that we're holding of connectedness and of sacredness. And it doesn't mean that we have to be everywhere all the time or do everything for everyone all the time. It's a fractal universe. And in this, the way that I see it is that in this field of unity, there is structure. And there is differentiation, and there are fractals, and it's dynamic. And so the separateness, that experience of separateness, we tend to rigidify it, reify it. We tend to feel like it's boxes and they, but when you actually look at it through the weave, you're seeing that we're vessels that are weaving energy through us, and that these membranes are not really solid, but
Right.
we're changing all the time. But within that, there is sacred geometry,
Mm-hmm.
like the infinity wave, like all of these sacred geometries, that it's not about solidity, but it's about relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we engage in the 7 days of rest, we have the opportunity, as you say, to engage with multiple levels, because even doing this within a larger field of knowing that so many people are engaging simultaneously at the same time from a very different perspective, but yet holding a similar frequency. And this is the beauty of it, because everybody's journey through the 7 days is so unique and individual.
Mm-hmm.
Even the themes themselves evoke so many, it's direct portals into realms of consciousness that just open up something like an individual journey. And as we engage in those journeys, we discover how much is ready to flow through us, and then we expose ourselves potentially to what other people are bringing through, to what you're bringing through, to what others are bringing through, and we start to see this incredible ecosystem that is diverse and yet holding the same intention and heart seed at the center.
Yeah.
And
Wow. Wow. It's so beautiful. I just have to thank you so deeply, you and Jan, for because it's not a small matter to produce such a thing. And it takes a lot of energy and time and devotion. And it's such a gift to all of us. And even people who have no idea what's going on, it's a gift to them because it's a gift to the whole. So I'm looking forward to being a part of it again. And I appreciate your correction. You're absolutely right. I kind of get on my soapbox a little bit about this unifying within and unifying without. And I thank you for correcting me. But it's something that is forgotten a lot of times. And so that's why I'm putting up the flag about it.
It's essential, that aspect of unifying within. It's so vital. I mean, as a therapist for many years, just working with those different aspects that have been negated and oppressed, rejected and judged, and all, and that healing process, healing and wholeness come from the same word. And so, it's so important what you're talking about, and as within, so without. And it's that process when we can do it from a more loving and less judgmental place, and recognize that we are all engaged, experiencing the consequences of a collective journey of evolution that has in it traumas that are ready to be healed now, and that there is a healing space, and a healing space that is very loving, that is being held by so many, and that invites all to join in and to say, how do we deal with all of these traumas and all of these disconnects in a way that is not punitive and judgmental and perpetuates the trauma, but really understanding this is our collective journey, and it's our collective opportunity for creating something else. And so my hope is that this 7 days of rest, and everybody's invited to it. And I'm just going to show one more thing just in the last minute, just to help people engage here. If you go onto the 7 days of rest website, you can actually go into any of the previous years and see the entire event and have access to all of it. So it becomes like these 7-day retreats with all of the events and all of the offerings, and you're able to do it at any time at your own pace. There are also gateways, which are inspirational portals that come and support the work. They're not connected to any particular theme, but they're more connected to that overriding intention for whole system healing. And during the event, what will happen is that as each day comes along, you'll see something called day 1, and then you'll go in. This was from this year, and it'll be different in January 2024. And you go in and you enjoy the event there. So
Fantastic. It's so beautiful too. And I recommend when you go to the Gateway tab, you click down and you'll see eco governance, because that's the manifesto really that Shelley and Jan have created, and it is something else. It is so beautifully laid out. It's a vision. I love it so much. And we've talked about that before on a previous interview, but let us just wrap it up today and just say thank you, thank you, thank you so much for taking the time to do this and really inspire people. I mean, it's a beautiful message. All your messages are beautiful. But to know that we have something to look forward to, where we can actually do this, we can get in there and participate and get into the field of a better world. I'm so excited, and so thank you so much, Shelley.
thank you so much, Hope. It's always just so inspirational to talk to you. I just so appreciate what you're doing in the world and the field of hope and that you create, and love that you create around you, and the incredible inspiration of you and all the beings that are with you. What an incredible field you are offering the world with such generosity and grace. So it's always
Thank you, my dear.
Thank you.
Well, I'm just glad we're together on this path. Anyway, signing off.
Yeah, you have listened, and so much welcoming to the 7 days of rest. And
Yeah.
if you're interested, you can also look at codes.earth, where the other work is.
Okay. So everybody will be hearing about 7 days as we get closer, and I'll let you know what's going on every night. And hopefully you'll join me as much as you can, and do the other things too that are coming together on Shelley and Jan's site. All right, my friends, lots of love, and until the next time.